Thank you so much for tuning in to the Healing Over Everything podcast. I am your host, T. So, we are a few months into the new year of 2024, and what's fresh on the minds of most people during this time is sticking to resolutions and staying true to the goals that they've committed to accomplishing for the year. I believe in order to stay focused and really stick to resolutions, that you really should develop a solid self care routine. Now, if you're asking yourself, what is a self care routine? Well, it's really simple. It's just a set of activities that you adopt to promote overall well being. The activities that you choose should be things that are going to keep you accountable as well as motivated while you're on your path to healing. And by creating a pattern of behavior, you're prioritizing your goals and desires. So, if you're the type of person that suffers with things like anxiety or overthinking, you would really benefit from a self care routine. What they do is allow you to feel more in control, and it kind of takes the guesswork out of your day to day decision making. And it encourages focus and a relaxed environment. So if you're already have a daily routine that you follow, you can start by just modifying that routine and adding some soul nourishing practices. So for an example, if you're the type of person that makes their bed every morning, right? You can start by listening to a podcast, right? That helps to stimulate your mind, something like this one. And then it actually helps to set the tone for your day, and then it also encourages productivity throughout the day, maybe relaxation, but it really does help to give you a laser focus for what you're trying to accomplish for the day. That's a simple explanation of self care routine. But I am going to be honest, if you're not a very disciplined person by nature, that you may struggle at first. But if you have an open and willing mindset, that you can thrive with this type of practice. So I'm going to share with you my self care routine and hopefully paint a clear picture of what it looks like, and then hopefully help you really land on solid practices that may be good for you to incorporate in your routine. Now, I can only honestly say that by incorporating these things into my daily practice, that it really did help to save my life. So prior to having a set schedule of activities, I did constantly really waste time throughout the day, if you think about it, doing absolutely nothing at all. So my day would consist of me waking up, getting ready for work, showering and, doing makeup or whatever, and then going to work. And then I would come home, maybe cook a meal, watch TV, do a little studying, and maybe help with my kids with their homework, things like that, cleaning up the house. And then I shower again and go to bed. Now that may sound familiar to most people because it's really a normal day for most, but you may have a few exceptions. You might go to school, or you might take a couple of hours and run some errands or go to the grocery store. But for the most part, that is how day to day life is for most of us, right? But name one thing in that list of things that I just rattled off real quick that really focused on my overall well being, other than waking up and showering and maybe, sleeping. None of that really focused on me in particular and my overall self-care. We didn't do anything to nourish ourselves or support that self-care aspect. And I wanted to change that, right? So what I did was I developed a self-care routine. And at the time when I started the routine, I was really, really struggling with depression and anxiety. And I just had all these really overwhelming thoughts of negativity. And I knew I needed to change in order to really pull me out of that despair. So the first thing that I did was I started the practice of meditation. Now, at the time, I didn't really know much about meditation. I did have to do some research, but what I found was very beneficial for me, and it helped me with my anxiety. So, Meditation does look a little bit different for everybody, but the overall purpose is to really help to quiet the mind and bring you to a state of calm and relaxation. And then during the meditation process, in order to quiet the noise and the intrusive thoughts that you have, what it is that you're encouraged to find one thing to focus on, right? Now, some people who meditate actually find a visible or a tangible object to focus on, maybe something in the room or something like that. But the way that I chose to meditate was by just engaging in deep breaths and focusing on my breath. And the reason that that technique worked for me was because I'm a Pisces, right? So I love the sound of water and waves. And to me, the inhale and exhale of my breath sounded like waves. So it was able to help keep me calm when anxiety was overwhelming me, right? So I initially started doing it when I was having anxiety attacks, but now I actually use it as an everyday practice. And the very first thing that I do when I open my eyes in the morning after thanking God, right, of course, is I wake up, I sit up in the bed in an upright position. I either am in the bed or sometimes I'm on the floor next to my bed. And I just start taking long, deep breaths. And I hold it and blow it out. And I do this for about 10 to 15 minutes before I start my day. And it really does help to make me feel calm and relaxed. And I'm able to carry that throughout my day because that's how I chose to start my day. Now, you may not have any issues with anxiety, but meditation also helps with managing anger, reducing stress. It helps enhance self awareness. So, if you have issues with things like sleeping, you may benefit from meditation, but instead of doing it in the morning like me, if you add it to your nighttime or bedtime routine, it would be a beneficial practice to help improve your sleep. And then as you build your meditation muscle, you can move on to more disciplined forms of meditation, like mindful meditation. But that's something that I do first thing in the morning, every morning. And then another practice that I adopted in my self care routine is exercise. So, because it helps to release those feel good or happy endorphins, is what I call them. After about 15 minutes of exercising and moving my body, my mind is clearer, right? That deep breathing helps to really calm the mind because you're using your full lung capacity, right? You're filling your lungs with oxygen and it's helping to calm the brain and relax, those negative thoughts if that's your issue, right? And that's usually my issue. And then there's also some logic behind that, where exercise or movement helps to stimulate the vagus nerve, right? So it helps to disengage that kind of fight or flight response that we have when we are involved in like traumatic situations or we're suffering from things like depression or anxiety. Um, Now, of course, if you're dealing with any physical restrictions, you may not be able to engage in any intense activities, but it could be something as simple as walking or riding a stationary bike. I know some people actually have great results from things like yoga. I haven't tried that one myself, but I am very interested in it. And maybe something I try in the future, especially if you have like issues with joints and things like that. Of course, you don't have to worry about the impact on your joints if you're doing yoga versus, exercise or walking, right? If you have restrictions. But I actually love to combine my deep breathing and exercising with another thing that I love to do, which is getting out in nature. So I like to go outside and walk. I walk on trails in my house or at a park, and just the sound of the birds or the outside activity, and feeling the wind in my face, that really is therapeutic for me. And it's twofold really. I'm getting the benefit of moving my body, so I'm building my endurance and things like that, and then I'm also getting clarity of thought and mind with um, the deep breathing of the exercise. So something else that I added to my routine, and I've actually seen the most visible results from this particular activity, is I started to consume whole foods in my diet. And I also, with that, started incorporating herbs. So back in 2019, God actually told me to change my diet because I was dealing with a lot of health issues like eczema and just overall not feeling well, feeling real sluggish. I was having terrible allergies. And moreover, I was overweight, right? I had a BMI of about 46, and I was considered severely obese. And on my 5'2" frame, that just was not cute, right? So after listening to God, who really just laid out a clear blueprint for me, I initiated a 90-day goal for myself. And what I did was I did a little research up on an alkaline diet, and I started that practice. So within the first 30 days, I was actually starting to see my eczema clear up, my skin was starting to glow, my brain fog was lifting, my allergies weren't as severe, and I was starting to lose between a half a pound to a pound a day, right? Because I was detoxing all that crap out of my body. So, along with that, I actually started to use things like natural soaps and deodorants and lotions. And coupled with the diet, I was really, really able to see some visible results. And that helped to encourage me to continue on in that practice. But when God initially told me to do those things, I thought it was just strictly to help with, the issues that I was having in that moment. But, he had a more strategic plan that was way larger than anything I could have fathomed. And I started that, and I know the exact date. I started December 28th of 2019, and I did it for 30 days, right? So if you count back, if you look at the calendar, 90 days from December 28th to when I stopped was March 27th. And right in the heart of that is when COVID hit and things just got insane, right? So I wasn't actually negatively affected by that, because with the changes that I had made to my diet, I was boosting my immune system, right? So I was able to, really stay healthy during the pandemic. So, God is so amazing when it comes to things like that. Like if you really have an ear to his voice and listen, he'll give you direction that will put you in a place of of peace, really, right? I was not even thinking about anything as crazy as COVID. Like we couldn't even fathom something so crazy. But, because I listened, I was really preserved during that time. And I always think back and I'm just like, God, you are so amazing, right? Um, but yeah, so I'm rambling on. But yeah, that was part of the thing that I incorporated, and I still do it to this day. When I'm following a really strict plan, I eat just fruits and vegetables only. But, sometimes I move between that in the 80-20 rule. That's where I eat like 80% alkaline and 20% just, your standard American diet. But I really did learn a lot about what my body needs to release weight and what kind of things negatively affect my health. And because I have eczema and sinus issues, one of the things that I learned is that, eating dairy for me is a huge no-no, because it really disrupts my eczema and it causes it to flare. And then, having issues with sinuses, those types of consuming those types of things really increases the mucus in your body, which exasperates your sinus issues. So I learned a lot in the practice, and I live by it. I may veer off here and there, but at the end of the day, it is part of my self-care routine, really treating myself with kindness and love by making healthy food choices consistently. And then using herbs is something that I started to incorporate with that alkaline diet. And I do it every day, right? I did a lot of research and I found herbs that are good alternatives for things that I'm going through as far as like eczema or you know, I I'm very concerned about um issues with memory because my mom was diagnosed with dementia. So I do things like I incorporate mushrooms, which is very good for cognitive stimulation, right? So I take lion's mane mushrooms. Every day I take olive leaf extract. Um, amongst other things, but really incorporating herbs into my daily living practice has been overall beneficial for me. And that's what I do on a daily basis, no matter what, if I'm on vacation or whatever the case, I make sure that I take my herbal supplements, and that includes teas as well. And I take a lot of tinctures under my tongue. So it's different options. You can decide which is best for you. If you choose to incorporate herbs into your self-care routine, just do your research. But yeah, it's been extremely beneficial to me. And it's amazes me how meticulous God is in giving us everything that we need to maintain our just basic necessities. And there really is an herb for absolutely everything. So yeah, that's something that's been beneficial for me. But then another activity that I found helpful in my routine is journaling. I have used journaling as a therapeutic practice. You can, I actually, it varies the way that I choose to do it. Sometimes I do it weekly, other times monthly or quarterly, but I do make it a practice to write out my thoughts about certain things. So I have a couple of different journaling styles, right? And one of those is where I actually just write down my dreams, right? And not dreams as if I'm sleeping dreams, but just my goals and the aspirations that I have and things that I want to accomplish. So I write those things out. And then I also have one where I strictly just write out my feelings about things that I'm currently going through or I've gone through in the past. And I use that as my therapy, right? um and doing that really helps to open my eyes about the things that I've gone through. And it helps me to be a more self-aware and reflective. And I'm actually able to recognize patterns and find perspective in the things that I am going through or have gone through. But journaling has been extremely beneficial for me. And like I said, it helps with things like lowering blood pressure. It's something that's been discovered, in science, that journaling is a good process to help calm the body and the nerves and the mind, and could really help in lowering things like your blood pressure. And then if you're battling with things like low self-image or low self-esteem or even depression, you could actually dedicate your journaling to writing positive affirmations as a way to boost your esteem. But journaling for me really does help to release my emotions. And then I don't feel judged when I journal because I know that nobody's going to read it but me. And it's a sense of freedom, really, the freedom to really be open and honest about how I'm feeling and then write it out. And then writing it helps me to really let go of those things and release them, right? Now, when it comes to choosing a self care routine, you're in complete control, right? So it's curated for you by you, just like FUBU. So think about things that really help to make you feel calm or at peace, or encourage positive self talk, things that help you feel a sense of balance and ease. And not only that, things that help you feel beautiful, right? So if you're doing things like, going to the hair salon, or even doing your hair at home, or even getting a pedicure, a manicure, or a massage, those are perfect things to help promote self care as well, right? So it doesn't have to be some of the things that I mentioned earlier. It could be things that really help boost your esteem and make you feel beautiful as well. Those are wonderful self care practices to incorporate in your routine as well. Another thing that I do, and you may not think that this is a good, well, not a good self-care practice, but you may not really think about it when it comes to self-care. But because I suffered with things like anxiety or PTSD, one of the things that I had to do in order to really preserve my mental well-being was I stopped watching the news, right? I used to watch the news every night after work, and it would really just take me out, if I'm being honest. Hearing all the stories about, people being murdered or robbed, carjacked, beat up. It's a hurricane, a tornado, an earthquake every 5 minutes. It was really just increasing my anxiety to 1,000. And then when I laid down to go to bed, all those thoughts are racing through my head, right? So I really had to make it a practice to just stop watching the news. And I can see the benefit. So when I lay down now to actually go to sleep, as soon as I lay in the bed, I'm able to drift off to sleep with no problems, because I'm not filling my mind and my head with all that negativity, right? That's going to encourage my mind to just keep going and keep going and keep going. And, with social media, is it's a nightly practice for a lot of people to scroll on your phone. A simple self-care routine is to, or simple self-care practice would be to, set a time before bed, maybe an hour or two, even 45 minutes before bed, to just turn off your devices and really just quiet and settle the mind, so that when it's time to go to sleep, your mind is wound down and you're able to just drift off to sleep naturally, without all that overstimulation. So that's a technique that you can maybe start to implement, especially if you deal with racing thoughts, during the time that keep you up at night, right? A lot of people have insomnia. I was amazed to find out how many people suffer with insomnia. And I'm sure, that social media scrolling doesn't help with that. So maybe try to do something like that when you're choosing your activities for your self care routine, right? And then also choose activities that you're going to be consistent in doing. It really does take discipline, but how bad do you want to see results, right? How badly do you want to heal? But I promise you, if you're consistent, you'll definitely see results. But then you can also really test your discipline. So like every year I test my discipline with different tasks. And one of the things that I test my discipline with is fasting, right? So like I said earlier in the podcast, I started with that alkaline diet, right? So now every 6 months or every year, I actually test my discipline and see, how much longer in time that I can extend out that diet. The first time I started with 90 days, the last time I did 120. I'm going to try to continue to extend it out, not from weight loss, but really just to see how disciplined I can be, and then really boost my confidence in myself, to know that, when I set a goal for myself, that I have the capacity to really succeed at that goal, right? So test your discipline, especially when choosing self-care practices that you're going to incorporate in your routine. I promise you, if you make yourself a priority and consistently follow a solid self-care plan, a self-care plan that focuses on healing and indulge in the things that make you the happiest, that you will increase your confidence, right? You'll learn to be your authentic self. Sometimes because of all the things that we've seen, heard, and experienced, our true identity is hidden. But I want you to thrive, right? As your authentic self, really show up as who you are. So I want you to take some quiet time alone with yourself and start to really think about some activities that you want to incorporate in your routine. And just make sure that you select activities that are going to boost your confidence, right? Help to quiet that negative self talk and really support mental clarity, physical awareness, and contribute to your overall well being. But just know that it is a marathon and not a sprint. You can start slow and just start making small, simple changes, right? Incorporating small activities. And once you actually decide on a solid routine for yourself, I want you to come over to my social media and share them with me, right? Give me a list of the things that you've decided to do, those positive changes that you've decided to make in your life, and then let me know how those changes and how that routine has helped you on your path of healing. But I really do have the utmost confidence in your success, and I'm rooting for you 100%. But like always, I end each show with an affirmation. And today, your affirmation is that I have the discipline I need to accomplish every task that I'm set out to do. Thank you again for tuning in to the Healing Over Everything podcast. I am your host, T, and we'll talk soon.